Hey there. So if you've been watching other videos on this channel, you know that I've been trying to figure out some things within my own photographic career, and one of those means less discussion of cameras and photographic equipment. But a lot of people saw that I got my hands on this Polaroid Originals OneStep2 here a couple weeks before release, and really wanted to know more about it because unfortunately there isn't a ton out there really in the hands of photographers. There's a lot of stuff from tech blogs and that sort of thing, but first-hand accounts have been really hard to come by, which has been surprising for a lot of people. So anyway, this is it. This is the Polaroid Originals OneStep2. Really, this is going to be a pretty short video. I won't go into unboxing or anything like that. They did. This is the packaging. You can see it on their website. I mean, it's nicely done. It's got that same kind of matte texture that a lot of their stuff does. This special package did come in a separate larger box. I'm not sure this is going to be part of the retail release, but the camera box goes inside here. There are also 4 packs of film. And then this guy, which is a letter about Polaroid Originals signed by their CEO. Comes with the camera, obviously. Comes with a charger because the battery's built in, and it comes with a pretty basic strap. But that's kind of it. I mean, everything else you can expect: instruction manual, packaging. Battery did come a little bit charged for me, but really, I did want to get into kind of the basics of it. Over the past weekend, I was in Denton, Texas, which is a city just outside of Dallas, for the 2017 Polacon, which is a gathering of instant film photographers from all over the country and all over the world. Had a lot of fun, met some really great people. Gave a discussion on zines and self-publishing, and just really had a good time. This was the second year. I presume it'll happen again next year. And if you have the ability, you should really come down and hang out. So that's how I was able to get my hands on this before the release, was through that event, or really not through that event, but through Polaroid Originals and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I was really glad that they were able to send it down, because unfortunately no one from the company was able to make it this year. So the camera itself, when you hold it, the first thing you'll notice is that it's got a pretty good weight. We did a lot of comparisons when we were in Texas to the original one. Plastic is a much higher quality on this. It has a really solid feel to it. It doesn't feel like cheap plastic. If you've ever held the original OneStep, you know what I'm talking about. Really not very structurally supported. You can kind of squeeze in certain places and hear the plastic flex and creak a little bit. This one, though, quite the opposite. It's a solid material despite being plastic still. One thing you'll notice too is that there's no Viewfinder Cup. When I was sharing this camera with people over the weekend and talking to them about it, this was actually the biggest surprise and kind of biggest complaint. Now, I'm okay because I use my right eye to shoot, so I have no problems with it. But those who use their left eye did, the sense was really that they wished something was there. But again, I really don't think it's a problem. Even using my left eye now, I'm having no trouble seeing through it. And I can say in all honesty, it's one of the sharpest and clearest viewfinders I've ever seen on any instant camera. It's big, it's really bright, things are more clearly defined with less distortion than even the SX70. Downside to it though is that it is pretty off. From our testings over the weekend, we found that when at portrait length, which is kind of like from me to my phone here in the 3 feet range, getting as close as 2 feet, you'll notice an offset by about 6 inches, maybe a little bit more depending on how close you get to your subject, when compared to framing within the viewfinder itself. So that was kind of a bummer, but it's one of those things that really all instant cameras have, and as soon as you get used to it, you know that you can just shift down or shift up and to the right is really what we found needed to be done just to compensate. The other thing you can do, of course, is just look through the viewfinder and pull your face away and make sure the camera's centered on your subject. Pretty basic though camera overall, and that should really come to no surprise to anyone. It is, after all, the next iteration of the OneStep. Underneath the viewfinder, you will find a light and darken mode. Wasn't really able to get a good nail down on exactly what that was in terms of exposure value, if it was a stop, if it was a half a stop. But the camera overall did a really great job of just exposing in general. On the bottom, you'll find instructions molded into the film door of the camera, and they say that you should be at least 2 feet away, keep the light behind you, and always leave the flash on. So it's really designed for an introductory shooter, which again shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone who's watching this. It's not a camera meant for professionals. Really, the results were really good. Actually, I was surprised. Lens is sharp, but before I get into that too much further, again, this isn't a camera designed for those looking for full control. The minimum focusing distance of at least 2 feet though is really interesting. When talking about it with people, they were kind of surprised and pleasantly so to learn that the minimum focus distance was so short, because at 2 feet, it's really easy to do, you know, the arm out self-portrait. With the other OneStep cameras, the minimum focus distance was in the 3.5 foot range, if I remember correctly. And so it's too far. Even holding out, you know, I have mediocrely long arms. I was never able to make it work. The viewfinder is multi-coated as well, which does help reduce with flare and keeps the contrast nice. The lens, also multi-coated. It is plastic single element, but fairly sharp for what it is. Like if you go in expecting that you'll get sharper images by quite a bit than the original OneStep, than a lot of the Polaroid OneStep cameras. They did a really nice job, kind of all things considered. It's not going to give you results like an SX70. Know that going into it, but it will give you really good images for a plastic lens. Self-timer buttons on the front here. One unfortunate thing about the self-timer is that there's no speaker anywhere in the camera, so there's no audible beeping. It's just a little red dot. And we did use it once, and unfortunately, none of us were really prepared, so the picture didn't come out all that great. Per Polaroid Originals instructions, I kept the flash on the entire time. Had good luck with exposure, just using that. I tried doing a few shots without the flash, and you can do that just if there's a button on the back here. If you hold this down while you take the photo, you kind of do a crab pinch. The flash won't fire when you take the photo. Camera tended to lean much more towards, or pretty heavily towards slow shutter speeds. I don't think there was a lot going on, and I don't know if there was a whole lot that could be done with the aperture on that end of it. Camera's powered by this on-off switch, or turned on by this on-off switch in the back. It's very simple, it's very big. I didn't have any problems accidentally bumping it, which was nice considering how big it is. I was a little bit afraid at first that I was going to put my thumb here and it would slip and I would turn the camera off. But camera stayed on the entire time without any trouble. And I was always sure to turn it off while I wasn't using it. And the battery lasted a really long time. It came to me partially charged. We put about 10 packs of film through it over the course of the weekend, and still had to charge on it today when I just took it out. Film counter is done through LEDs on the top display here, or top panel, I guess you could say. There's 8 little diodes, and for every exposure you take, 1 goes away. So really easy, really clear to see how many shots you have. The only bummer is that you can't do it when the camera's turned off. You have to turn the camera on to see how many shots you have left, and then preferably turn it back off. Charging is done through this USB-C port here, but I'm kind of again getting into things that you more than likely already know. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the important things to note is that it's an under $100 camera designed for Polaroid Originals film. And the big benefit that you get out of this is you get that cheaper price. You get the $16 packs. You get the $2 exposures. It seems pretty clear to me that this is aimed directly at the Fuji Instax Square. In terms of price point, Fuji Instax Square I think is about $15 a pack. You do get 2 more exposures. But when you consider that the Polaroid Originals frame is so much larger, does it even out in terms of square inches of light sensitive material? Yeah, probably. It's got that retro effect. Honestly, I think they're going to sell 1 million of these things. I think this thing is going to fly off the shelves. If you're into instant photography and you like an SX70, you have an SX70, and you're kind of on the fence, I don't know. I'd really suggest you getting one in your hands first. I don't think you'll be disappointed in the build quality. My question is really one more of how much would you use it? Do you have an SX70 but you don't have the mint flash bar, which is around $100? Okay, well maybe you get this and you just take it to parties and instances where you need to use the flash. But if you have an SLR 680, something that has the flash in it, Do you really need it? I don't know. If you like collecting cameras, awesome. Totally pick one up. If you're thinking about it for a gift, definitely. If you've got someone who wants to get into instant photography and they're like, oh, do I look at the vintage cameras? Do I get an old OneStep? Direct them to this. It's going to give them a much better user experience. They're going to enjoy it much more. They're going to enjoy the format much more. They're going to get the cheaper film, and they're going to have the rechargeable battery, which is really, they did such a better job on this than with the i1. I think their specs say it lasts something like 60% longer. All in all, again, for under $100, it's a good camera. It really lives up to the OneStep name. Everything you could have expected if we were in an alternate reality where Polaroid never went out of business and they created a new OneStep camera, this is exactly the kind of camera we'd be seeing. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Anything specific, I kind of wanted to really just give a general rundown on the specs and kind of my thoughts on this camera. I do have to send it back though, unfortunately. So, but please be sure to subscribe. Follow me on social media. I'll post links down below. And thanks for watching.